Hello, Regine Mora here, also known as Mommy Mango. So we are going to talk about something that I've talked about while doing a workout, but I actually want to just sit here and have an actual conversation with you without working out. Because if you're still struggling with strengthening and tightening your core, I know that this information can be super helpful for you to actually break through and get the results that you're looking for. Again, Regine Mora, also known as Mommy Mango. I've helped thousands of women of all ages strengthen and tighten their mommy tummy without spending hours in the gym or starving themselves. So today we are going to talk about the 4 C's to a strong core. And this is something that is critical because I have used this with my clients, with my ladies in my program to actually get results. But the interesting thing is there's one of these C's is like 80% of the drama. It's 80% of the struggle. But I want to show you the key that I use, especially for my coaching clients, to change that struggle into growth. And I know it's going to make a big difference for you. So let's go through that. So the first C to have a strong core is doing the correct exercises. So we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but I need to go over this and make sure that you really understand the old way that we used to work the core was through things like sit-ups, Russian twists, things that work the external part of the core. And here's something I want you to understand that's just on a little bit deeper level, because I know when I throw my short videos at you, I'm just telling you, sit-ups aren't great when you're just getting started, but I want you to understand a little bit deeper of what's going on with the muscles. So when it comes to the sit-ups work the rectus abdominis. Now that's a flexion muscle, okay? So when we're talking about correct exercises, we're wanting to make sure we're targeting the part of the abdominal muscles that actually shrink and tighten the waistline. And I'm not saying that like shrink the waistline for like aesthetic purposes, but it's really important that we have a tight core all the way around because that's what gives our back support. So we're not having that back pain that you've been having. That's also what gives us support in the pelvic floor so that you're not dealing with that leaking. That also helps tighten up the tummy so you're not having those digestion issues and your tummy is not spilling forward and having issues with like hernias and things like that. So it's really important that we actually have a tight muscle going around. But the question is, what are the correct exercises to tighten that muscle that wraps around and shrinks you in? So oftentimes when people think, okay, the correct exercises might be sit-ups, but that just works the external part of the core, that flexion muscle. So that's why you're doing, in the past, you've probably done exercises like sit-ups because that's what strengthens that six-pack muscle, anything that flexes you, okay? But you're needing exercises that helps to shrink you this way, to support you all the way around. And that's why you'll see the exercises that come up on my feed, like the pelvic tilts, like the heel slides, like the bridges and things more of that nature, where when you do that exercise, you're actually having to tighten your waistline in. Okay, and if you're needing more help with exactly what exercises to do, put ready down in the comments. I have a whole bunch of exercises. You can see those in my shorts. But that is just a little bit of background as to why we're not doing the sit-ups to work the external part of the muscles, the ab muscles, but we're wanting to work those deeper muscles that shrink our waistline in. So it's important that we do the correct exercises. Now, the correct exercises aren't enough. We need to make sure that we are doing step number 2, that we're doing them correctly. So what I see sometimes are, for example, working with a coaching client, she's doing those pelvic tilts that I told you about that actually work the deep core muscles. She was doing the pelvic tilts and I was looking at her through the screen as we were on a group coaching call. And she said to me, I don't feel this. And I'm like looking at her, I'm like, I see her butt is like clenched and she's using her butt muscles to tilt her pelvis. I was like, how about you relax your pelvic, your glutes and rock your pelvis only using those deep core muscles. And she relaxed her glutes so she could only rotate the pelvis with those deep core muscles. She's like, ooh, I really feel that now. And she felt sore afterwards. That's because she was doing the correct exercises. Now she was doing them correctly. So here's the thing. We can do moves, we can do the right exercises and do them incorrectly and not get results. And that's what I don't want to happen with you. And that's why that's a really important part of the 4 C's. What happens is when you have a loose, weak, stretched out core, when you're doing various movements, even the correct exercises, your deep core has been checked out for so long, it takes a bit of conscious effort in the beginning to actually get it on board to do the different movements. So like with the pelvic tilt example, if your deep core is used to being checked out, your body, I tell you, okay, do the pelvic tilt, your deep core is checked out, but your body sees the movement and says, oh, I can do this. And instead of using the deep core because it's checked out, it uses the glutes to do it. So what happens is a lot of times we're doing the correct exercises, but we're compensating with using other muscles that we're used to using because our deep core is checked out. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, definitely leave it down in the comments because this is an important part to get. Your deep core is probably checked out. So when you start doing even the correct exercises, you have to focus on using your deep core so that it actually is doing some work because it will naturally stay checked out unless you reconnect to it. That's why I'm an 8-week core challenge. We spend a lot of time. The exercises aren't hard. They're actually easy as far as like load and the feeling of them. It's not like lifting heavy weights. It's really a part of concentration. And that's why my ladies in the 8-week core challenge are so shocked that after a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, I had a lady in our monthly group call that we had for my boot camp. She was saying that after 4 weeks, she tested herself, her diastasis recti. She had already gotten so much better. She went from like 3 fingers down to 2 fingers. And I mean, in just a short period of time, and the exercises seem easy because it's about concentration and reconnecting to the muscle, especially in the beginning, not so much as heavy load and doing hard stuff. Okay. So it's really important that we do the correct exercises, that we understand how to properly engage the core. And I want to start with you, just give you a little bit of a taste of what it means to engage the core, because I recognize that when somebody tells you to engage your core, that can be a difficult thing to do. You're like, what does that even mean? Like, I've heard people say it's like somebody's going to punch you in the stomach and you're going to flex your abs. That's usually a superficial core rectus abdominis 6-pack thing. That's not a transverse abdominis wrap around your core and shrink your waistline in kind of thing. So I want you to do a little something with me so you can feel what it feels like to really zip up your core. And I use the word zip on purpose because I have a zip framework. That's why I'm actually sitting here with my pants unzipped. What I want you to do for this zip method is I want you to sit up nice and tall. Now I want you to pretend as though you put on a tight pair of jeans like these. Now we are going to button it. Now I want you, I'm going to just pull my suit out of here a little bit. I want you to zip up the zipper as, and you want to make sure that you don't get your skin or anything caught. Like for me, I don't want to get the suit caught. So I'm kind of sucking in this lower part. So we're going to pretend as though we're zipping up our core from the pubic bone all the way up, okay? And you're going to hold that in. So you're pretending as though you're zipping up a zipper without getting your skin caught down there. If you felt that, I want you to say core down in the comments, okay? That's like my one analogy that I use with a lot of my clients that they say they resonate with a lot, okay? I have so many different analogies, but that one is the one. I call it my zip method. If you want to know more about that, check out the link in the comments, or put masterclass in the comments. I have a live masterclass where I go into a lot more detail about how to engage your core, but that was just a taste, okay? Because I really need you to understand that you can do the correct exercises, not do them correctly, and not get the results you're looking for, okay? And I want you to get results. I know you can. All right, so let's go into number 3. The third C is doing them consistently. Now, this is the hard part. A lot of times for a lot of us. Now, if this is not hard for you, please put in the comments how you stay consistent to encourage somebody else, because this is a struggling point for a lot of us. When it comes to consistency, we have to do the correct exercises. We have to do them correctly. We have to do them consistently. Now, consistently means you only need to do these exercises for about 10 to 15 minutes 4 times a week to get results. That doesn't seem like a lot, right? But here's the thing, I still know a lot of us struggle with this point fiercely. And so we are going to talk about this because this is 80% of the struggle that I was mentioning before. So let's pause here and let's go down and talk about that in a second. But before we move on, I want to talk about the last C, challenge progressively. Okay, so what happens is I have seen this on YouTube over and over again where people will say, here are the top 3 exercises I use to get my mommy tummy back, back together. And that will be it. It'll just be the 3 exercises. But we have to remember, just like it is with strengthening our biceps or strengthening any other muscle group, we have to progressively overload. So you can't just keep doing the same 3 exercises forever without progressively challenging, progressively overloading to get more results. So like with my ladies in the 8-week core challenge and my coaching clients, after about 3 or so weeks, I'm going to up them to do more challenging core exercises so they can continue seeing results. And I continue progressing them every few weeks until they get the results that they're looking for. And then sometimes I'll get people saying, is this really going to work? Is it really going to strengthen my tummy? Is it really going to stop my back pain? Is it really going to help my leaking? Well, does anybody ever ask, is that going to work for my biceps? If I increase the weights from 5 pounds to 10 pounds, everybody knows that's the science of it. It's the same thing with the core. It's just the core muscles are a little bit different in how we engage them. So I think we don't have as much faith that they will actually tighten when we are engaging them. But if you go through these steps, these are the exact steps it's going to take to get that strong core. Doing the correct exercises, doing them correctly, consistently, and then we're going to progressively overload and challenge those muscles. And the deep core muscle, remember, the transverse abdominis that we're trying to strengthen is a muscle that when you strengthen it, it tightens this way. Okay? So like the six-pack muscle, when you strengthen it, it tightens this way. It folds, it flexes. With the obliques, they tighten this way. With the transverse abdominis, it tightens this way, like a waist trainer. And as you continue to strengthen it, it will continue to tighten and tighten and tighten. That's how my ladies keep getting results, because we go through this process. But we're not going to get the results unless we can figure out this consistency piece. And that's why I want to take a moment to go over with you the exact framework that I use. My allergies are killing me. The exact framework that I use to help my moms overcome the struggle of consistency. Okay? I was looking up quotes about this because I'm like, I want a cute, punchy quote to give you that will stick to your mind. And I got one from Oprah Winfrey that says, where there is no struggle, there is no strength. Don't forget that. Where there is no struggle, there is no strength. And so if you are struggling with consistency, I want you to kind of think of it like how we think of our muscles. If we don't challenge our muscles, it's not going to grow, right? But when we do challenge our muscles, we don't just say, ooh, that exercise is too hard, I'm going to stop here. No, we push through because we want to see the progress, right? It's the same thing when we struggle with anything else, especially consistency. We have to this is what I tell my coaching clients, look at consistency as a muscle of the mind. And when you are struggling with consistency, don't look at that struggle and let that be a setback. Use that struggle to help you get stronger, okay? And this is how you're going to do it. You're going to use my GROW framework. This is something that I've used with my clients over and over and over to help them push through. So the first thing you're going to do when you have a situation, let's say you're struggling with consistency, you get up, like I've had for myself, I've been struggling with allergies. You can hear I'm got the tissue and whooping on my nose and everything. I've been struggling with allergies, especially at night. I'm getting so much congestion. I've tried all the natural things. I tried the Zyrtec, and I'm just like, oh my. So I'm going to try some other things. Pray for me. Hopefully that will work for tonight. But I'm struggling with sleep because of my sinus congestion. So I wake up in the morning and I'm so exhausted. I don't want to work out. Okay. But this has been going on for like almost 3 weeks now. So if I pause my workout journey for 3 weeks, am I going to have progress? No, because I have to be consistent, right? So what do? I'm going to greet this challenge. I'm having a struggle. The struggle is consistency. I'm going to greet the challenge. And the greeting the challenge means like, okay, you're naming it. You're saying, I'm struggling with consistency. And we're not judging. I'm not saying like, oh, I'm struggling with consistency. I'm such an inconsistent person. I'm such a bad student. I'm such a bad person. I'm such a bad, I knew I couldn't do this. We're not going to do that. We're going to, without judgment, we're going to greet the challenge. We're going to name it. We're going to say, I'm struggling with consistency. I'm not sleeping that well. My allergies aren't good. And then we're going to go to the second letter of GROW. That's reframe your mindset. Instead of saying, oh, I'm a bad person. Oh, I knew I couldn't do it. Oh, this is where I always mess up. This is where I always fail. Instead, say something like, this is hard, but this is how I grow. Or without struggle, there is no strength. Saying something positive that really reframes your mind to say, okay, just like I struggle with weights so I can get stronger, I can struggle with consistency and push through so I can get stronger. Because remember, consistency is almost like a muscle of the mind, a muscle of the mindset. And as we face it, we can overcome that as well. Okay, so we greet the challenge, which is where we name it without judgment. Then we reframe it in our mind. I'm not a bad person. I'm not inconsistent. I'm learning to be consistent. Okay, now we're going to go to the next step. And this is the most important step here. Now, I don't even have the most important, but it's very critical. We're going to look at our options to overcome, because a lot of times we stop here. We stop like at the struggle and we think, okay, I knew I couldn't do this. I'm tired. My allergies kept me up at night. But instead, we're going to look for options to overcome. And we're going to realize that we are strengthening the muscle of consistency, and it doesn't have to be all or nothing. This is where I think we get tripped up. It has to be perfect. So I haven't slept well. I'm really tired. My body feels really tired. Now I might not feel like doing my kids playing. I might not feel like doing a whole 15-minute workout, even though it's really easy, but maybe I just can't even wrap my mind around doing a whole 15-minute workout. So instead of saying all or nothing, I say, you know what? I'm trying to just strengthen my muscle of consistency. And consistency just means showing up, even if it's for 2 minutes, so that I'm actually making progress forward. Okay? So I'm going to say, what are my options to overcome? I could do a 2-minute workout, or I could do 15 minutes of an easier workout. Or let me think about this. If this were my best friend and I wanted her to have a strong core, what would I advise for her to do in this situation? Because oftentimes we treat our friends better than we treat ourselves, right? So I want you to think of options to overcome. Now, this is the part here where with my coaching clients, we're working on it. In our group, we're working on it one-on-one. We're helping them think of options. We're encouraging each other, because we have to build that muscle of consistency. Even if we only do a 2-minute thing, you're building the muscle of consistency. So if you do a 2-minute thing and you consistently do that for weeks on end, even when you're really tired, even when things are chaotic in the house, even when your house is a mess or your kids are sick or whatever, you will be more consistent, and in time you can add more time. You will go from 2 minutes to 5 minutes to 10 minutes, which is about all you need to get the strong core that you're looking for. I hope that's making sense, because this is what really works for us, okay? And then lastly, you have the W in grow. The W in grow is win with small wins. You have to celebrate your wins. It gives you that momentum to keep going. And so for this circumstance, one thing I was talking to a lady yesterday on a consultation call, and she was a little bit discouraged because there were just things happening. And one thing I told her was, you don't have struggle unless you're showing up. Somebody who doesn't show up is not struggling. So if you're showing up, then you are winning. And she was like, I never thought of it like that. I'm like, yeah, you're not going to struggle unless you're not you're only going to struggle if you're showing up. And before, you didn't show up. And I said, every time you show up to do something different or to do something for yourself, I said, disruption always follows intention. So whenever you're going to try to do something, disruption always follows. And it's part of the process. And that just means you are about something. You are trying to do something. And that's where you're going to push through. Because remember what Oprah Winfrey said? Without struggle, there is no growth. Okay? So I want you to count those wins. Even if the win is, I showed up, I started troubleshooting, I reframed my mindset, I named the struggle without judgment. I've given myself grace. And now I'm going to find something, the littlest thing I can do to show some consistency and move forward. Okay? So this is the exact framework that you need to get to a strong core. And I know this is challenging, but this is what you can do to help push through that. And I want to finish off with another quote that I found that I just love. Oh, yes. It is by Seneca. He's a Roman philosopher. It says, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. I love that, because one thing that we have to realize is, in our quest to get a strong core, we are strengthening our outer self. But as I've been coaching women and as I've been working with thousands of women working through this process, we have another transformation that's happening as well. And that's right up here. And once you transform this area, the sky's the limit for anything that you want to accomplish. So I want to encourage you with that. If you're needing help with any of this, put down in the comments masterclass, and you can join my live masterclass where I go into all of this and so much more. Okay? I'll see you next time. Thank you for joining me.